and welcome back to my build. This is James, and we're looking at the Barnstormer 25S kit build that I've been working on for several months now. Just to recap, so this kit was made like in the 1980s, mid-80s or so, and it came out, I think I got my original one from Hobby Shack in Southern California, and I was able to get this kit online through eBay. So I always do searches on eBay to see if I can find vintage kits, and this is one that I got, and obviously I've been building it. So I know I have a lot of videos out on this build. It's sort of been a long process. I've been doing a lot of detail step-by-step stuff. So anyhow, thanks for watching. Now I'm at the point now where I do need to start putting in the electronics and hooking up the control linkages to the linkage to the engine, and of course to the rudder and the elevator and then the ailerons. But before I can do that, I need to put the servos in, because the servos are going to be sort of your, obviously it's going to be your base point for your connections. So I want to get all those in, and that's what I'm going to be doing in this video, is putting in the servos, putting in the electronics, and then hopefully I can get to the actual linkages themselves. I will have to drill or just place some holes in the bulkheads leading up to the throttle linkage, because I have to go through the firewall and all the way back to the throttle servo. And then of course we have the ailerons in the wing, and so that's my next step. I will be using, like I mentioned before, I will be using, there's another piece of my this extruded foam material that I get. This is extruded foam insulation board, and it comes in different thicknesses and sizes. My local hardware store just sells it like in 2 by 2 foot square inch thick pieces. But what I'm going to be doing is I'm probably going to make like a little cradle or a little something that's to hold the receiver. And then I'll probably do something for the battery, and I'll just put these inside the fuselage to help sort of secure things. And again, it's very light, nice and light. It's pretty strong, and it's perfect for stuff like this. So, you can use different types of foam, but I like this stuff because it's, like I said, it's dense, and you can cut it and shape it how you want, and it's very light and it's very strong. So that's a good thing. All right, to start with, I'm just going to be using this Futaba 6J. It's a 6-channel transmitter, and it's not a real fancy transmitter, I guess, in comparison to the stuff we had back in the the old days. This is completely high tech, but this is not the this has a lot of features on it, probably way more than I'm ever going to use. But it's a nice kind of programmable transmitter, and it works well for sort of like these simple builds. This is, again, it's just going to be a 4-channel system. This is a 6-channel radio, and it's going to work really well. But I do have to set up the new model in here, and I will have to link the new the receiver to it, and I'll do those setups, and then I'll move on with setting up the servos and everything. All right, so the first thing I need to do is I need to link my receiver to my transmitter. And it's a pretty easy process with this Futaba. All I have to do is turn them on and then push a button on the receiver, and it will sort of do a little linking process. It will take a few seconds. So let me so I have my receiver here. I'm going to be using this switch. I got to install this. This is going to be the electric switch for the plane, and I'll be using that during this whole process. Get this out of here. And of course I have my battery, and I've mentioned before, Batteries America. Check these guys out if you're trying to get batteries for your stuff. They have really good resources. So I'll put that over there. And then again, what I'm going to be using for the elevator, the rudder, and the throttle, I'm just going to be using these standard. These are just basically analog Futaba servos. These are the S3004s. They're not programmable. These are just your basic standard servo. There's nothing fancy about them. But they're kind of like the workhorse of servos, the way I look at them, and they work really well. And I don't think, knock on wood, I've never had a failure of a Futaba servo, so that's good. And then for the aileron, I'm going to be using this this S9001, and it's a little more powerful than these ones. It's still an analog sort of basic servo, but it's a little stronger than these, and I'm going to be using this one in the ailerons because, as I mentioned before, the ailerons, I have 2 linkages. And I have a longer, the ailerons are long, so it's moving more mass against more, I guess, resistance with all the hinges and everything. So I'm going to be using this to give me a little bit more power on the ailerons. And yeah, so these ones, you actually can't get these anymore brand new. You can get them either through eBay or places like that. You can find them new, but they're not being manufactured anymore by Futaba. And actually, I don't think they make the S004s anymore either. But you still get a lot of these online still. All right, so here's my receiver. And I'll hook my battery up to it. This is going to go right in here. That. Then I'll hook my power. Okay. That should work there. Then all I have to do is turn my transmitter on and turn the receiver on. It's blinking. And I just have to push this little button right in here, if I can get this in here for a second. There it goes. Now it should be linking. Now it's good to go. Oh, easy as that. So that was the linking procedure. Again, this is the Futaba 6J, and this receiver is the R2006GS. So real simple. So now my receiver is linked to my transmitter for this model, and we're ready to go. All right, so I'm going to pull all the servo arms off of the servos, because I know I'm going to have to adjust them anyhow. So I'll just take the screws out carefully. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and plug these in and make sure they all work. You don't want to do this after you install them, because then if they don't work, you got to take it out, right? So okay, so number one is the aileron. Here's my aileron. All right, and the rest don't matter because they're all the same. So, tell you one thing, it's August, and I'm working in my garage, and it's hot. So, I'll do this for a little while and I'll take a break. Okay. Okay, there we go. So let's put these guys out here so we can see how they work. Turn on my dude there. Turn this on. Oh, there they go. Let's make sure here. 1, 2, 3. Put your aileron over here. Okay. All right, there's our elevator. There's my aileron. There's elevator, rudder, and throttle. All right, things look like they're dancing there, doing good. Cool. All right, so now I know that these things are all functioning, and now we can go ahead and mount them in here, and that'll be the next step. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to mount the servos, and then get those mounted. I'll mount the switch, and I probably won't do the receiver and the battery until last. I'll just kind of let those sit inside the fuselage for now. I'll kind of, and then I'll do those at the very end, because I may need to move things around. I think the balance on the plane should be pretty easy to do. I don't have a lot of room to work with if I do need to balance out the plane. So hopefully things will be okay, and I won't have to move the battery too far and things like that. I don't want to add weight to the plane if it needs to be balanced. If I can do it that way, I'd rather move things around inside the fuselage that have to be there to make the plane balance. So hopefully that'll work out for us. So I'm going to pull these servos arms off of here. Go. And now the Futaba come with I don't know anything about other radio systems. I've always done Futaba, so I'm just going to set it up obviously the way I do it with Futaba stuff. Okay, for this particular type of servo, the little kit comes with these little grommet, or these little rubber, I guess that's a grommet. You put it on the bottom like that. And there. And then actually what goes inside there are these little kind of like little bushings, I guess. You can put those in first actually. You can go like this. Those are like that. You can see that. And then these just go in here like this, like that. And then you put your screws in into the wood through that. You can also bolt them in, but I'm going to be using the screws that come with it. So the screw itself will just go through, you know, like that. And then that little grommet just gives you a little bit of a kind of like vibration protection, a little bit of padding. All right. All right, well, let's get these servos mounted. So I'm gonna go ahead and put them in the tray. So here's my, whack anything, but here's the tray where they're gonna go. So the throttle is gonna go in the front, and then the elevator and the rudder are gonna go toward the back. And then they're gonna alternate so they don't get in each other's way. So let me go ahead and just set these in here real quick. There they go. Kind of a tight squeeze, but anyhow. All right, so there they are in there. Now what I'm going to do is, so this is wood, and I'm going to use my little this awl, which is just basically a pointy, like a pointy screwdriver, and I'm going to go ahead and mark the locations for all this where the screws are going to go. Now this is like a plywood, and then the screws are kind of thin, or kind of small diameter screws that come with the servos, these little guys. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and screw them all in, and then I'm going to take them back out, and then I'm going to put CA where I put the holes for the screws. And what that's going to do is that's just going to help strengthen, sort of like, you know, when you put the screw in the wood, you sort of create, I guess, some threads, right, by putting the screw in. So I'm going to put a drop of CA on all those, and that's going to help strengthen the wood a little bit. So that's a tip that I picked up putting together an ARF kit once. You know, they recommend to go ahead and put a little drop of CA around all those little holes, the screw holes, and I think it's a good idea. So I'm going to go ahead and do it here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and mark these out. Just gonna okay. All right, so I got those all marked, and I'm just going to pull the servos back out now, and then we'll go through and do this, put the screws in like I just mentioned. 3. Okay, now if you can see, maybe in here, or you can see where I marked, maybe not. Yeah, you can see where I marked the holes. So those are going to be my little pilot, kind of like, they're not true pilot holes because they don't go all the way through, but they're going to be where I can start putting the screws in. All right, so there they all are in there now, and now I'll pull them all back out, and then we'll hit them with the CA. It's kind of a pain in the butt, but it's sort of an extra step that I think is going to be helpful and help them strengthen up the servo tray and the connections. All right, so there's our holes. I took all those out of there, and I'm just going to put my CA in here now. Oops! Whoa, stuff comes out here like crazy. Now, one thing, again, being this older kit that this is, I do have a concern that the wood has dried out over the years, and maybe that's, I've noticed that some of the plywood has sort of delaminated in places. So I don't mind putting CA on this thing as an extra precaution in places like this. So let's put some more in here. Boy. Okay, so there's the first one in there, and you know, once you get that CA in there, you actually can feel a difference when you're putting the screw, and it does feel a lot stiffer and a lot stronger than just going straight into the wood. It's not as soft. So yeah, so that one's in there. So let me do these other two, and then we'll move on from there. Okay, so there's our servos mounted. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and mount the servo in the, since I got all the stuff out right here, I'm going to go ahead and just mount the servo in the wing for the aileron. All right, so here's the wing. So the difference between the mounting blocks in the wing compared to the fuselage is that these are actually a hardwood. The other one was, and the fuselage was actually plywood. So I'm actually going, I don't want to crack that wood, so I'm actually going to put a little pilot hole, a true pilot hole for each one of my screw locations. So I'm just going to use a smaller drill bit. It's like about half the diameter of the actual screw. So I'm going to go ahead and mark my locations again with the servo, and then once I mark it, I'll go ahead and I'll drill these out to give me a true pilot hole for the screw. I don't want to crack, like I said, I don't want to crack the hardwood. All right, so there's our aileron servo mounted. And I'm just going to go ahead and mark it with my pin vise with the drill bit in it. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and mark it with my other tool, wherever that went. Here we go. It'll be easier doing it this way. All right, so now I'll go ahead and drill these. Just drill them out real quick. All right, those are good. Okay, our CA is set, so we'll go ahead and put our servo in. This one's a tight fit. There it goes. That. Okay, so there's the aileron servo mounted and ready to go. It's nice and secure. And now I'm going to go back to the fuselage because I think I'm going to go ahead and move on to putting the switch in. So the switch is just going to go right here. There's actually a pre-made little slot inside here. It's covered with the monocoat. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut that little piece out, cut the monocoat out, and then the switch will go ahead and just mount right there. So let me get my X-Acto blade, wherever that went. Okay, let me cut this out of here. All right, so the switch just comes with a little, just like a little retainer. It has on and off on it. So I'll pull that off, and that'll sort of act as my template for the screws that I have to, or the holes I have to drill through the fuselage. I do have a slot already for the switch, like I just mentioned, but it doesn't have the locations for the holes for the screws. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this off of here, and this will be our template. All right, so there's the little, I guess the retainer for the switch, and I'm going to put this on here where the switch has to go. It'll help me hold it like that. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'll mark my locations with my little marker here. Okay, well, it was a little cumbersome to do that on the camera, so I just took it off the camera and marked those locations for the holes. And now I'll get the pin vise again, and I will drill the holes out. And I will, like I said, once I get everything finished on the plane, once I'm completely done with it, the very last thing I'm going to do is go back over the whole plane with my iron, and I'm going to make sure all the monocoat is attached still. Just do another check on the monocoat, especially around areas where I've done stuff like this, where I've cut monocoat away and things like that. I want to make sure I have a nice seal still. So I'm going to go ahead and just check everything with the monocoat, with the iron, just before, as a final check. All right, so that should be good like that. Okay. There we go. Okay, so there's the switch. Looks pretty good. And you want to make sure you have the full amount of throw. You know, you don't want to have it so that maybe the slot's too small and it's not completely turning on or completely turning off. Most importantly, you want to make sure it can completely turn on. If for example, you know, you didn't have this thing oriented right when you mount a switch, and it was just barely kind of making it to the on position. When the plane rattled or something, you'd have a chance that maybe it would turn off, and you wouldn't want that to happen, right? So I make sure that I have full amount of throw in the on position for sure. The off position is less important. Obviously you want to turn it off when you need to, but you want to make sure that you don't have any chance that that there's an obstruction, or that it's obstructed so it can't turn on completely 100%. So you don't want to have like it half turned on. That's kind of what I'm trying to say. And then vibration from the engine or something kind of make it go backward and turn it off. That would be horrible, right? There's that. Okay, well that's it for the servo mounting. I got all the servos mounted, I got the switch mounted, and then now I can move on. The next step will be to get the receiver located and mounted, and then also the battery. I'm gonna do sort of like a dummy mount for the receiver right now, because I want to be able to move it around. I have to make sure that the when the wing's on, that the aileron servo and linkages are not in the way. So I'm not going to put everything in sort of permanently right now. So I'm just going to go ahead and put this stuff, like I'll probably just tape it in here for now, and just to get it out of the way and keep it secure while I do all the other connections. And then at the very end, I'll go ahead and I'll mount it where it needs to be in a more secure way. Alright, so one thing I did, the very last thing I did before we move on to and start to install the rest of this, is I marked each one of my different lines coming off of my servos. I marked them so I can keep track of which one's which. You know, I tend to take things off and on, you know, when I'm doing things and adjusting things, I'm unplugging, I'm putting things back in. And just to help me keep my sanity, I like to mark, I just used a piece of tape, you know, like here's R for rudder, and I just marked my different wires. So I have E for elevator, T for throttle, and then R for rudder. And then I just leave this one blank. This was going to be for the, this is for the aileron. And this is an aileron, this is basically an extension, because what happens is when this is going to be mounted inside the plane, the wing has to come off and on, and I don't want to be unplugging it at the receiver, because the receiver is going to be packed and kind of sealed up a little bit. So I'm just going to have this coming out, and this will be just for the aileron. Okay, well that's it for now for this video. I'm gonna take a break. It's getting really hot in this garage, so I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here, and then I'll come back and move on to the continuing to putting the electronics in. I'm gonna get the receiver kind of set in here, the battery, and at that point I'll put the control horns on these things and start sort of line up. And that's going to be the next big step, is the line up where all the linkages are going to go, and that'll be in the next video. All right, so thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.